It's time for Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson, and I'm your host, Tony Graham. G'day, Matthew.
Morning, Tony. It's a bit of a chilly morning this morning.
I hadn't really noticed, to be honest.
Sitting in that nice warm studio, we get a bit protected from the environment.
That's right, and I'm very pleased you've been trying to improve on your alliteration, and I hope that's not the only thing you're trying to improve on, however.
I always like to improve my alliteration. Tech Talk topics today for Tony is a good little bit of alliteration.
Anyway, look, the first topic is Chevrolet is developing full-size electric pickup truck with a 400-mile range. Now, there's something very familiar about this, isn't it? And obviously pitched towards the American market.
Yeah, it is great, actually. So many utes and SUVs and pickup trucks, as they like to call them in America, are coming out in electric versions. And 400, that's 640 kilometre range. So that's pretty impressive for an electric vehicle, but a pickup truck in particular, it's fantastic. And it's great to see General Motors in America is getting into this. So the Chevrolet Bolt is actually pretty popular in the US, not available in Australia yet, but it's pretty popular over there. And so on the back of that, obviously General Motors are saying we're going to continue down this path, and they've allocated $20 billion to go through the program with their electric and autonomous vehicles, and that's for their program over the next 5 years. So that's pretty exciting. It's not their first foray into electric vehicles, though. The Hummer, the Hummer, which I actually love. You picture the Hummer, you think of diesel spewing out the back, you think of all this noise and energy, and they actually produced an electric Hummer, or they announced electric Hummer, and I think that'll first be on the market next year. So that's pretty exciting as well. So there's a whole range of things that are happening in the electric vehicle space, but in Chevrolet in particular, they've looked at it and they've said, this is where our future is. Our future is in electric vehicles.
Yes. So there's a big momentum now towards electric vehicles, isn't there?
I think you're right. I think there's momentum, and probably more accurately, momentum away from ICE vehicles. It's towards electric or hydrogen or fuel cell or alternative fuel sources for vehicles. I think the days of petrol and diesel vehicles are absolutely numbered.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt about it, but of course, we're probably talking about turnaround time of about 10 years, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think we're going down that path where it's predictions are all over the place at the moment, and it depends what markers you put in place, what percentage of the market, what segments of the market, but I think we're getting to that point now. And I actually had a really good discussion with someone the other day about when electric vehicles would be cheaper than petrol vehicles, and I said they're already at that point. And the person didn't quite believe me. But when you take the total cost of ownership, when you look at the maintenance, the cost of the fuel, the depreciation, the number one cost of a vehicle is depreciation. When you take all that into account, electric vehicles are out there at the moment in the small car segment where they're actually cheaper than a petrol vehicle to own for that total cost of ownership.
Yeah, so we are starting to reach milestones now with electric vehicle manufacturing, and of course, Elon Musk is just going gangbusters with his manufacturing.
Well, the fact that it's the most valuable car company in the world for a company that's existed for a bit over a decade is just unbelievable.
Yeah, and the factory over there in China, I believe, is up and running, and that will have a big impact on it.
Yeah.
Now, there's a material that cannot be cut, which would have a lot of different uses, but one of them is it would make the ultimate unbreakable bike lock. So you've had a few bikes pinched, have you, Matthew?
I have had bikes pinched over the years, but I haven't had one pinched for a little while, knock on wood. So this is a new material that's been developed, and the idea is it's actually quite incredible in what it does. Rather than just be really tough and really hard, which a lot of materials where you might make a lock out of, for example, are just made to be very hard, but you can finally get through them. You get an angle grinder, you get a power drill, you even get water jet cutters, and they'll finally get through those items because they're just made to be hard or tough, so they just take longer to get through. But this particular substance, which they've dubbed Proteus after the shape-shifting Greek god, is basically a material that changes its shape when it's attacked. And so what it does is the components actually break down to smaller components and actually act like sandpaper. So when you have something like an angle grinder that attacks it, the little ceramic spheres create vibrations, they attack the angle grinder, and the blade actually wears out before it can manage to get through the material. A whole range of uses, as you can imagine. Bike lock, I think, is probably one of the minor uses for it, but the actual technology in the material, when we think we've gone as far as we can in material design, someone else comes up with a better design, and this is one of those better designs with that breaking down the material and changing its shape to actually attack the thing that's attacking it.
All I can say is don't lose your keys, because you might lose your bike, might remain chained to the post forever.
It's a good point.
Or,
don't forget your combination off or lose your keys, otherwise you might as well leave it there.
Or you might have to actually cut the bot to get it out of the lock.
That's right.
Yes, well, interesting is how one situation creates another problem. When you solve one problem, it creates another.
Exactly.
Anyway, the United Kingdom has followed Australia and the United States and a few other countries in banning Huawei from its 5G network. And boy, are the Chinese jumping up and down about that.
Well, they're not very impressed, and you can imagine the standard response from China when anyone banned anything to do with China is obviously just straight retaliation, I suppose, is the standard response. But the US is claiming this is a victory. They're saying that the UK has only done this because of the US ban on Huawei equipment. And of course, the UK is saying that their security advice, they've done their own security advice, they're not just following the US. But it is a major impact around the world, I think, because Huawei have been able to produce fairly cost-effective 5G network equipment. And that's typically good for countries because they can produce cheaper networks, make cheaper phone calls or cheaper plans for people. And in Australia in particular, the merger of TPG and Vodafone has partly come about because of this ban from Australia on Huawei. And TPG were going to develop the fourth mobile phone network here in Australia, but when Huawei was banned, they then said it was too expensive for them to develop their own 5G network, hence they joined forces with Vodafone. But that's a separate story. In the UK now, they were going ahead. They did actually say they would start to use Huawei equipment in the 5G rollout in the UK, but they've now said no, and so they're slowly removing what's already been installed there, but it's going to take to the year 2027 before all the Huawei equipment is removed. Now, is there a risk for the UK? Is this something that creates a huge risk? Obviously, they see there is some risk involved with having Huawei equipment in the network, but I don't think they've seen such a huge risk that they're going to remove it all completely at the moment. But again, they might start to remove it sooner than that. But it is interesting around the world, there are various countries that are banning Huawei equipment as part of the network. And China, for example, part of their retaliation is they've said that if the UK doesn't trust us with their 5G network, then maybe we shouldn't have Chinese citizens investing in businesses in the UK. So their retaliation is their advice to their residents is to stop investing in the UK, which could have a large impact on some UK businesses.
It might actually have a positive impact on those businesses.
Yeah, it may do as well. Depends how badly they need cash and where they can get cash from and what interest rates they might pay for that cash or what other encumbrances might be on that cash. So having a free market across the world is great. It gives you more opportunities, but at the same time, when one country says we're not going to invest there might be some other implications.
Well, certainly with the change to Hong Kong, with the new laws China has made about it, the international financial community is looking at an alternative now to the big banking sector in Hong Kong. So it's going to be very interesting to see down the track where it all winds up.
Yeah, you're right, and they're spot on there. Hong Kong has got a great reputation as a banking sector or a global banking sector there, but once China sinks its claws in a little bit more, who knows what will happen? Yeah.
And you'll be listening to Tech Talk with Matthew Dickinson on Binjang 91.5. Stay tuned this afternoon at 3:40 p.m. and it's back to the great music and community information on Binjang.
Talk to you this afternoon, Tony.